In 1972,
Okay.
I was 25 years old.
Okay.
My family was broken. My marriage was broken. My health was broken. I was actually living on the street of Atlanta, Georgia, sleeping in a box. My mind had left me. I'd done so much drugs and alcohol. Going all the way back, I grew up in the mountains, the Appalachian Mountains. My father was a drunkard. My grandfather had a moonshine still. I learned to cut and shoot and do all those things growing up, but never learned about Jesus or God or church or anything.
What's cut and shoot? What's cut and shoot? Cut people?
Cut people, cut and shoot.
Oh,
that's
cut.
that's
Cut and
Appalachian
shoot
growth.
people.
Yeah, cut and shoot.
Cut.
Okay.
Cut
and shoot. Okay.
Okay.
Cut and shoot. Okay.
I like President Reagan's brother just a little bit better than this.
Okay.
I told you I was from Tennessee,
Okay,
the
okay.
mountains of eastern Tennessee.
So that was your upbringing that was your life.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay,
Very,
now you're
very
in a
true.
box. Wait, you're in a box in Atlanta, sleeping. Your mind is because of alcohol. Did you know you were in such a state, or are you just kind of tripping so far you didn't really even know it?
Probably from the time I was 9 years old, Matt, it started. Someone gave me a baby lamb. I had to walk 2 miles to catch the school bus, and we never had anything. We never had electricity or running water, and had free lunches at school. But someone gave me a baby lamb on the way home one day, and it became very precious to me as a 9-year-old child in an abusive home. And my father beat that lamb to death in front of me, butchered it, killed it. At 9 years old, my heart just became hard. I began to scream, ran off into the mountains, screaming, "He's killed my lamb." But I made a promise that I'd never shed another tear, and anybody that got hurt from there on, it would be someone else. I knew nothing about evil, but at 9 years old, a spirit of rebellion came into my life. And from that point on, I was throwing rocks at police and trying to burn down the schoolhouses and stealing cars. I stole a car and wound up killing some people and went into reform school and kind of grew up in the reform school and saw people raped and killed and hanged themselves. But my heart just got harder and harder and harder. So by 1972, I was married. I'd been kicked out of school even before I went to the reform school. But I met this little girl. She was 15 years old.
Wow.
And I was about 16 and a half when we got married.
Wow.
And we didn't know. All I knew was hatred and violence. And her father was a bartender in Chicago. But she didn't have the violence that I had. But I brought her into that lifestyle and began robbing and traveling all over the country. Together, robbing stores.
You were like a Bonnie and Clyde kind of thing?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
I'm serious.
Look at her.
I'm
She
serious.
couldn't hurt anybody.
Yeah.
Now, Matt and I have done some fun things, but...
I waited in the car.
Wow.
Yeah, she
you
waited.
You were the
guys.
getaway
She was
driver?
a getaway driver. Yeah.
Oh, my God. I've never met a getaway driver.
Just raised in Arizona.
She's a pretty good driver, you know. So. But she had a good teacher.
You guys.
Her dad hauled moonshine whiskey, so she had a good teacher, you know.
Yeah.
to drive her, so.
Knew how to get out of town, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Wow.
this really you're not making any of this
No,
up.
sir.
You're not.
No,
you
sir.
got
This
a criminal record apparently
Yes.
as long as you're
Wow.
armed.
Yes.
Okay.
very,
Now,
very
did you
much
know
never
what
caught
drew
me.
you to this kid? What'd she say?
They never caught me. Well, they're watching right now.
They are.
There's a police officer standing right there.
I know.
Okay.
Funny
Shame.
thing about it, my son's a police officer. Can you believe that?
Isn't that
Wow.
amazing?
God's got a
Okay.
sense of humor.
He's got a sense of
Okay,
humor.
what in the world happened?
Okay, so take us to your departure from this earth. What happened?
Okay. In the late 60s, in that condition, I was arrested and actually broke out of jail, Fulton County Jail in Atlanta, Georgia.
Wow.
It's documented. And but it's past the statute of limitations.
Thank you,
It's a
Jesus.
gray hair now, see?
Yeah.
Gray hair. So,
Wow.
But here's what happened. I called, see, she had to leave with our babies She almost committed suicide. Had Billy Graham not come on television and spoke to her heart through a little black and white TV set and warned about the dangers of hell. Had God not spoke through him to her, she left, took the kids, and went back home. So I just went deeper and deeper. But after breaking out of jail, I called her and said, can I have another chance? I really would like to be a father. I would like to be a husband, and my kids love me. And she said, so we'll try it. And we did try. She tried to help me. She'd lock me up in the bathroom and the bedroom, and I'd break the doors down and climb out the windows. I had to get to the drugs and the alcohol. But in 1972, I went down to the corner market. My little son was with me. He was 5 years old, and I was a violent person, man. I mean, I'm ashamed of it now, but I was full of it. And I walked into that market, and a man was coming out the door, and he shoved the door, and I shoved the door, but that's all it took. I exploded in anger and busted his head, knocked him down on the floor, and people were screaming. My little son saw all this, but that man didn't stay down. He got up with a broken 16-ounce glass bottle and started stabbing me. The very first stab severed the biceps muscle and the arteries and the ligaments in my left arm. And every time my heart would beat, the blood was just pumping out on the floor. In my anger, I'm still trying to hit this guy, and he's cutting me and cutting me. But they said, if you don't get to a hospital, you're going to bleed to death. And they put me in the passenger side of a car and drove me to the nearest hospital. By the time I got there, I was virtually dead. I almost bled to death. Well, they tried to help me and stabilize me and put me in an ambulance to send me to a bigger hospital. And in the back of that ambulance, laying there, 25 years old, with bleeding ulcers and my hair falling out and a nervous wreck and no reputation, a young man looked down into my face, a paramedic, and said, "Sir, do you know Jesus Christ?"
Hello. Wow.
I didn't know Jesus. I didn't know what he was talking about. I was so paranoid. If anything intimidated me, I lashed out at it. Wow. It made me angry and worse. So I started cussing him and his Jesus. I cursed. That's all I knew. That's all I knew. And he kept saying, Jesus loves you. If you'll call on him, he'll help you. And as he was speaking to me about this, the ambulance, I thought, blew up. I mean, it caught on fire, and the thing filled full of smoke, and I thought it was an electrical fire. So I'm laying here near death, and the thing is so full of smoke I can't breathe. She's in the ambulance with me, and worse than that, my body felt like it began to just come up off the gurney and float away. And I began to hear people screaming and crying and groaning, and I didn't know what that was. And then when I began to see out of this thick smoke that was choking me, I'm looking into what looked like the open mouth of a volcanic crater, a burning crater. And I'm falling into this thing with no help. And worse than that, I begin to see people in this fire. And they're screaming and crying, and they're burning, but they're not burning up. Wow. Now I've been shot and cut and had things done to me that I won't even talk about here. Got high on pain, got to a point in my life that I hated everything and everybody. But this did something to me. I didn't know what it was. And when I looked into the face of men that I saw shot to death in liquor store robberies, and I saw people that died of drug overdoses and died drunk in automobile accidents, and they're screaming at me and calling my name and telling me to go back, to not come there. There's no escape. There's no way out. And I'm just falling into this, and I don't understand what it is, but I can't breathe, and the stench is awful, and the depression is awful.